Obama's commitment of 3,000 U.S. troops to Africa to fight Ebola. That's right, Ebola. The outbreak has suddenly gone from being a distant problem Americans shouldn't be alarmed about to getting a bigger military commitment than the ISIS threat. Really? With me now, retired Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin and infectious disease specialist Dr. Bob Arnott. Good evening, gentlemen. All right, let's hit it. General, I'm going to start with you. The president says, I want the American people to know that the chances of an Ebola outbreak in the United States are extremely low. So why are we sending 3,000 military troops there when we can't send 3,000 troops to fight ISIS, the people who are committed to our destruction and who are beheading us?
Judge, plain and simply, it's because this is the thought process and the actions of a community organizer. This is not the actions of a commander-in-chief that takes his job seriously. In reality, our military is not up to this mission. This is not what they're supposed to do. Douglas MacArthur was very clear in 1962 at West Point when he said, your mission remains fixed, determined, and inviolable.
All right.
It is to fight and win wars.
There's no question. He must be turning in his grave when he hears this. And I have to tell you, General, the idea of people in the military, you know, who are trained to go to the battlefield or to do whatever they do technologically with all the advancements, what are they thinking as they're going over there? The president says something like, at the request of the Liberian government, we're going to establish a military command center in Liberia to support civilian efforts across the region.
Yeah, here's what you should watch, Judge. You should watch to see how many command visits you get by the president and the vice president into that part of Africa. See how many photo ops they get there at this command center. You're not going to see that. Again, this is not a mission for our military at a time when they are stressed to the breaking point after 13 years of war.
All right, Dr. Bob Arnott, I'm going to go to you. Now, we had a couple of doctors, or at least one doctor and a nurse or whatever. They came back with Ebola after they went there to treat them. Our military, the men and women, 3,000 of them, they don't know all the precautions to take. Why are we sending them into the danger zone like this?
So the answer is that, you know, they're going to construct 17 hospitals, each of 100 beds. But do the math for me. That is, this epidemic is now spreading exponentially. I'll tell you what that means. 5,000 now, in 3 weeks, 10,000. They're going to have 1,700 beds. By the time they get there, they're far too few. But continue the math. Every 2 to 3 weeks, it's going to go 5,000, 10,000, 20, 40, 80, 120,000, 240,000, 500,000. It's extraordinary. And I had a great opportunity to talk to Save the Children in Liberia just the other day. They were saying that the real danger here with this epidemic, which is tragic, is that, you know, the children who have preventable diseases, you know, where they could be treated for malaria or diarrhea or for, you know, simple pneumonia, they're not getting treated. All these healthcare centers are closed down. But the intriguing thing is, when you look even at the health centers that are open, a bad health center is much, much worse than no health center. And the reason is they spew disease. And to your point, what about the U.S. military out there? No, they're not trained to fight Ebola. And this is a disease where it's the tiniest little bit of virus that can infect you. Even those who are well protected can end up, of course, infected
and maybe die. And given the fact that our troops are at risk of contracting the Ebola, and, you know, we've got this 21-day gestation period, they could come back with the disease, not know they have the disease, and come back with it because it hasn't, you know, been obvious. Bob?
Absolutely. Now, you know, I've been with the U.S. military, Gulf War I, Gulf War II, Afghanistan, Somalia, Kenya, you know, and I've seen their medical teams in action, and they are prepared to be able to treat patients with radiation and biological and chem. I mean, they're up to the task. Don't get me wrong on that, but is there a risk? Of course there's a risk. You know, there was a doctor just the other day, a nurse in one of the top environments, that is a super protective environment, all the masks, all the gowns, she was infected. When I was the last big epidemic in Uganda, I was with the two top doctors in the country at that point. We rounded on a Wednesday. Within a week, both of them were dead.
All right. I'm going to go to the general. The final question. What are we doing in the healthcare business, and where's the UN? Why is this our problem?
Well, again, it's because of the way this president responds to these kinds of things, more along the lines of a community organizer. The same thing he did in Ferguson, for example. But look, I want to be very clear. I object to this on the grounds that it's not a military mission, but I also ask the same question you do. Where is the United Nations? Where are the other African nations? Where are the other nations in the world that have the same interest in this as America, who have not been at war for 13 years?
Dr. Arnott, General Boykin, thanks so much for being with us this evening.
Thanks, Your Honor.
All right. And coming up.